Sippers, welcome to this episode of the Tea With Me podcast with me, Shane Todd. For this episode, just one sponsor this week, and if we're going to just have one, make it a good one. I'm talking about those ball guys, Manscaped. These guys just spend their time thinking about your balls and the area below it, above it, and around it. You know what I'm talking. These guys are nuts. They have all the products you need for your down below area, and they have special technology so you don't cut it. And that is excellent, because I've seen friends that have used almost like little lawnmowers, and they've hacked the bits. These guys, the products are smooth. They've got the Lawnmower 4.0, ball cleanser, ball deodorant, ball wipes. They've got, your balls will not be looking better than this. And coming up to Christmas, wouldn't that be a lovely gift to show the family on Christmas morning? You go, hey, what do you think of that? And you show them your wee balls. Lovely gift for Secret Santa or something. We have a code with them, which is Tea With Me, for 20% off and free shipping. Great Christmas present idea. Go to manscaped.com, links in the description. Let's get into this episode. Saw someone recently comment on one of these podcasts and say, this is getting to be a joke. And it was advice. You need to make these reads quicker for these ads. You're doing 2 minutes per read. Hey mate, I used to do 58 minutes for each ad, so we're making progress. Also, don't ever tell us how to do this podcast. You dick. My guest this week is Oliver Jeffers. This guy grew up in Belfast, but has spent most of his working career in New York. He is the top of his game. He's an artist, but way more than that. He's an illustrator. He does fine art. He does books. He makes a lot of great books for children as well, picture books. I mean, the guy has done it all. He's got a few films on Apple TV, and just one of the most creative people that you will ever meet. Sitting down with him, want to do that for a long time. What's funny about that, Kieran? You're not supposed to be on this episode, and I'm just doing the reads, and you just won't know that Kieran Bartlett's in the studio. But what's so funny?
Oh, I just really need the cough.
Yeah, well, don't. Oliver Jeffers is a guy I've wanted to have on for a while, a couple of years. I think we asked him during COVID, but I'm delighted to actually have him in the studio because he's moved back here. He has worked with some unbelievable people. He's done a lot of visual work for U2. He tells a lot of great anecdotes on this, and also we just get into it and have fairly deep conversations about parenthood and career and success, all manner of things. Definitely check out his work. A lot of people will 100% know who he is. I mean, the guy's absolutely massive, and he's done us a big favour by even coming on. But I'm reading my son one of his books at the minute, and he loves it. Oliver's very funny, talented, just a really nice guy to have a chat with. So I'm having a cup of tea with him right now for your viewing pleasure. So normally I ask guests as first question, do you drink tea and that kind of thing? We've got into a conversation about poppers, and you've told me that back in the day, at the dentist, you would be given poppers.
Well, it wasn't called poppers. It's nitrous oxide.
Right.
And that's what, they didn't have the injection then. Like, this is when I'm, 5 years old, clearly.
Yeah.
My parents weren't great at teeth hygiene. So there's a photograph of me in the back of our car when I'm about 4. I'm asleep, and I've got one of those sweetie dodos, it's like pure rock candy in my mouth, and I'm asleep.
Right.
And so, obviously I had a lot of fillings when I was very small. But yeah, that's what the dentist used to give you, was laughing gas. And
is poppers laughing gas?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I talk about poppers in my set quite a bit with no knowledge of what poppers actually is.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's what I've been led to believe. I might be wrong. I haven't actually gone and looked it up or anything, but
would you be open if someone can source them before the end of this podcast? Would you offer you and me at the end of this podcast? Just
maybe not live.
Toasting.
Isn't that where Elon Musk went wrong?
Came on this podcast.
Yes.
Did poppers.
Yes.
That's the equivalent. Are you talking about him smoking weed on
yes.
Rogan? You come on here and do poppers.
It was all going so well.
Your work just tanks after it.
Yeah. But no, I remember sitting in the dentist chair just basically tripping my balls off.
That's why I thought it just relaxes you.
No, I remember like they had pictures of Garfield on the roof, and Garfield was coming to life and everything. And
oh shit.
Yeah.
And this dentist was in a discotheque?
This dentist was in the back room of somebody's house. It all seems very dodgy now.
Oliver,
When I think about it.
what was this childhood dentist in someone's house? Sweetie Dodos, what's going on? Where was it? Was this in Belfast?
This is in North Belfast. Yeah, a lot has changed since the late
Right.
70s and early 80s.
Right.
Mostly for the better.
Yeah. There's loads and loads that I want to talk to you about. I've wanted to have you on the podcast for a long time. Let me start by saying I don't do for these podcasts a lot of research purely because
You're lazy.
I'm lazy. I'm ignorant, but I like to just see where the conversation goes and actually find out as we're talking. But this week, I was like, "You're coming on the podcast. Let me order some books," because my son is really into like me reading him books at night. So we've just started reading some of your books.
Are you telling me you waited until I was coming on?
Yeah.
And you have a 2-year-old son. You waited 2 years.
2.5.
2.5 years before you got any of my books.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Just for the because I'm like I want
The
to
anticipation.
exactly.
Yeah, you wanted to come at it with fresh eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're reading
Consummate professional.
at the minute. We're reading about the boy who catches the star.
Yes. That's not
That-
the title. But.
I know, but, all over. It is.
Okay.
It is.
Do you know actually on Wikipedia, do you know the way that's like crowdsourced? Anybody can add information
Yeah,
to it.
trust me, I know that because I
Yeah.
get absolutely roasted on.
Yeah, my wife went on to my Wikipedia page just to sort of check through it, and somebody had made an amendment about a year before and changed the name of the author of How to Catch a Star, which is the actual title of that book,
I know.
to themselves, just some random guy in England, and it was like John Smith or whatever, and it was like for a year, and everybody was raging. I thought it was hilarious. I wanted to keep it like that, but
That's very mild compared to what the stuff I've got before on Wikipedia.
okay, yeah.
Like Shane Todd as a comedian was changed to Shane Todd as an Avon salesman.
You would be good at it, though.
I would clean up if I was going door to door selling Avon. I think I'd have the right amount of cheeky banter and also just straight sales.
Yeah,
You know,
just go direct at it.
yeah, and that book is great. Like, because
Are we talking about the Avon Handbook?
could we go into business doing that?
Yeah, probably.
I think that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just getting flashbacks to Edward Scissorhands now. Isn't that
Right.
what she was an Avon saleswoman? Avon calling the mother.
Oh right, I was like, I don't remember that in that,
Yeah.
the premise of that movie.
Right, so far we've gone on about 4 different tangents. This is going to be a fun
That's what
hour.
I want.
Yes,
That's
okay,
wait till the
good.
poppers hit.
Yeah.
Now,
Wait a minute, what's in my tea?
the great thing about that book is for us, for me and my son, is that week, coincidentally, you know the wee stick on stars you get for the bedroom ceiling for
Yeah,
kids?
yeah.
I just put them up for him. And also he just sort of seen the stars for the first time. We were walking from the car into the house. And
Oh,
I
the
said,
actual stars?
Look at the stars.
Yeah.
And we'd never taken a minute to actually, he'd never seen them because he always thought they were in books or in stories.
Yeah.
So the moment he looked up at the stars, he was like, he didn't say it, but he was like, fuck me, look at that.
Wait
it
till
blew his
wait
mind.
till the true sort of scale of everything dawns on him.
He's not ready for that.
Yeah.
He's doing that.
Most people aren't. Yeah.
But he loved it. So getting that, so I just was looking through the books. We picked that one. So it's a great time to read it because he's fascinated by stars.
Yeah.
And it's great.
Actually, I've noticed that you can a clear night sky here. You see the stars brilliantly in winter. In New York, 17 years we were living there. You don't really notice it. You can't see them. There's a lot of
Yeah.
light pollution and smog, and the air is not that clear. But here's crystal clear night. I mean, we had the telescope out the other night, and you can see Jupiter. It's the closest it's been in 40 years, and you can see the moons of Jupiter. It's like crystal clear. It's amazing.
Deadly serious.
Deadly serious, yeah.
My dad was
See
in,
if you look south, and it's still going on. The minute the brightest star you see in the sky is actually Jupiter.
right. Now my dad brought me a telescope to my house when we moved into my new house, and he brought me a telescope. He's like, "Do you remember this?" I don't remember it, but I just found out my dad has a telescope. Here's the thing that worries me: my dad has zero interest in astronomy. So
But he knew a lot about the neighbours.
Yeah. So I dread the thing. So I have a telescope, but I haven't set it up yet. But I think my son has that kind of curiosity now in the stars and the planets,
Yeah.
and I have to pretend I'm an expert on it, but I don't know anything about it. So we're going to be learning together.
Yeah.
So that was a great time to read
That's
that book.
that's a good level to enter at.
Yeah.
The 2-year-old
Yeah.
level.
So
Yeah.
let's go back to you're from Belfast.
Yes.
You lived in New York for many years. So where'd you grow up in Belfast?
In North Belfast.
Whereabouts?
Do you want my address? Is that? Do you know this actually happened the other night? We went to see Ed Gamble, and we were having a drink with him afterwards, and there was somebody with him, and they lived in London, a friend of his, but they grew up in Belfast, and she says, "Where are you from?" North Belfast, and you know, where specifically? And I was like, and I said the street, and she was like, "You're joking. I grew up at the end of that street." And Ed was just like, "See, I know everybody in Northern Ireland knows each other." And it was just too
because our big thing is pretending that stereotype isn't true.
Yeah.
We're like, it's actually bigger than you think it is.
Yeah.
And then the other person in the room will go, I could actually see your house from my house growing up.
No,
like
it is. It's like everybody, especially when you're away somewhere and you inevitably know somebody who they know.
Yeah. Did you have, like, when you lived in New York, did you have a lot of friends from home?
Not at the start, no. My cousin, they grew up in Dublin, two brothers, and then another cousin who's a cousin of mine, and they run in the bar world there, and it would have been very easy to tap into that whole world. Yeah, it was like that. You know, we're trying to get away from the sort of
Pints.
small parochial thinking of Northern Ireland and Ireland. We don't want to just walk into a mini home, really. So I kind of made an effort to not infiltrate into the Irish scene there. But inevitably did just go to play football with them, and but most of the people we know in New York are actually French for some reason. There's very few people that you would meet in New York who were born and bred in New York. Yeah.
Everyone's come from a different place.
Yeah.
But you grew up in Belfast. When did you move to New York?
I mean, ever since 2020, I can't really remember what year it is. So yeah, about 17 years ago. So I went to summer camp there when I was a kid, right? And when I was about, I think 19 or 20, I remember there was a curfew in North Belfast the summer before, and it was shit. And I was like, this is when I'm supposed to be out, you know, going up the hill drinking and trying to meet girls and everything, and I'm stuck at home watching Countdown with my ma. And so I thought, right, I'm going to see if I can go back to this summer camp that I went to as a kid. And I got a job there, and I flew into New York and then took the train up, but I decided to stay a few days in New York. Got in touch with a guy I remembered from when I was a kid, and I stayed with him for like 3 or 4 days and just fell in love with New York City. Right. Just the energy of it, the possibility, everything. And at that moment I was like, I'm going to come and live here.
It's incomparable, especially the first time. Not just the first time you go, anytime I go back, I still have that, like, I can't keep my head down in New York. I'm always just up at the bill, like, I know, like saying whoa.
It all seems so familiar at the same time because you recognise from TV and from films.
And did you move there because you couldn't do what you wanted to do here, as in like because of your job, because of art and everything like that?
I mean, or you just not so directly, but there was a big part of that, yes. Right. So much of the work that I do is actually, it's about identity and perspective and things like that. And I remember very, very clearly, because I went to Hazelwood College, right? And that was one of the first integrated schools in Northern Ireland. And there was a World Cup qualifier between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. You probably remember it. It was way, way, way back. And you know, but having been raised Catholic, it was expected of me where I lived that, like, you go for the Republic of Ireland. But in school, people were like, well, why would you do that? That's not where you live. And I suddenly became really confused. Right. It was like, and, you know, it's like this identity crisis almost sort of setting in. Whenever I read about this, there was an ex-president of the States, like way back in the early 1800s, said patriotism is the last refuge of the scoundrel. Right. And so there was something about that, like the way in which we were very inward looking and thinking and protective and defensive. And yeah, there is a bit of that tallest poppy syndrome, you know, the must get chopped down, or the nail that sticks up must be hammered down. And if you have an idea that's outside of your station, when you're starting off, well, certainly back then, it would be like, who do you think you are? So it's not that I couldn't do what I want to do here. It felt easier and more exciting to do it somewhere where it was going to be celebrated and encouraged with like-minded people rather than just sort of swimming upstream a little bit.
That whole thing of who do you support, that's why I support Senegal when it comes to international football. Mm-hmm. Just keeps it way easier. Yeah. I always use the analogy of like with stand-up, and I think the attitude here has totally changed in, say, the last maybe 5 years. But when I started in stand-up, if you had said as a comedian something like, I want to do live at the Apollo, like that's my goal. Yeah. The attitude here would be, what do you want to do that for? Yeah. Why would you want to do that? Yeah. Whereas if you were anywhere else in the world, like say London or New York, it would be like, oh, brilliant! Like how are you gonna go about that?
Yeah.
But I think, I don't know what the change was, but I think just recently something has changed here. Yeah, yeah. That's what I meant.
But so I would come home for Christmas, right, and I'd go down to the Duke of York for a pint or something, and people would recognise me, and I would hear this often enough to recognise that it bothered me. People would say, I was like, oh, it's so brilliant, you've done so well, even though you're from here.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then I started looking into it, and I was like, what's the population of Belfast?
1.2 million.
Is it as much as that now? That's
don't have a clue. Dan, is that wrong?
No, it's surely half that.
Oh right, no, the population in Northern Ireland I think is 1.4 million.
So I could name you 10 places in England that have a population same size as Belfast that you've never heard of.
Yeah,
everybody's heard of here, and it's not just because of the Troubles. Like some phenomenal people and things have come from here, like you and me, obviously. Yeah. But the first radio signals were sent here. The defibrillator was invented here.
Yep, I knew that.
Yeah, air conditioning was invented here. The list goes on, full of brilliant people, and it should be. Isn't it great? You've done well because you're from here.
Yeah, yeah.
That mindset needs to change a little bit, and I think it is.
Did you notice, like, the more you come home, did you notice like a little bit of a change in attitude here and more of a?
I think so, and it's partly. People do say that social media is a great evil and everything, but it's a great equalizer in some ways, because you're no longer comparing yourself to the people down the road. You can kind of see what life is like for everybody else everywhere. Yeah. But the problem with that is like the zero feedback loop. It's like everything is instantaneous, so you don't really know how to feel about something. But it's the you can get a good cup of coffee now. Yeah. In Belfast.
Not before 1 on a Sunday.
Apparently.
That's one. No, we're keeping that. That's
right. Just in case you want to go to church. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that I described that to someone recently, and they were like, "Why is that?" I was like, "Hey, God."
Yeah.
Tony, what's population size Belfast? 340 people.
Yeah. Yep.
Way smaller than I thought.
No wonder we know them all.
Statistically, doing well in your career, like that's wild. You've won 340 chance of doing it.
They just must move around a lot because everywhere seems busy.
Just the same. How much would that fuck your head if you find out that was true?
Like the Truman Show. Like, hang on a second.
I always had like aspirations to want to move away, but I think deep down I really didn't. I just thought that I kind of had to say that, and I was kind of scared of going. I'm actually like a bit of a homebird, and I always want to be here. But I like that in more recent years I've travelled to work and do stand up and
come back.
But there's always been that thing of. Like the first few times I was like, who do I think I am?
Yeah.
Trying to do a 10-minute spot in London, it's like maybe
But there's that Oscar Wilde saying like be yourself, everybody else is taken. But Cher had a better one. All of us
believe in life after love.
Yes, but no, she said all of us invent ourselves. Some of us just have more imagination than the others.
Right.
But I talked to David Holmes about this a bit because he was living in LA for a while, and then he was just like, I just like Belfast, so he moved back, and he's got an international career, but he just likes here.
Yeah.
And we didn't intend to necessarily come back. It was like a.
Did you move back recently?
Yeah. Well, I still have my main studio in Brooklyn, but the kids are in school here, and we're here. I'm here about 70% of the time, but I kind of. I forgot how much I loved it here, and how much I love the people here, and geographically, it's fantastic.
Now, do you live in? Am I right in saying you live in Hollywood?
Yes.
Now, come on, how good is that?
It's pretty ideal, I have to say.
Yeah.
It's like what do we not have?
I mean, listen.
Actually, a good pub grub.
You think there isn't?
Not in Hollywood. You like a Sunday carvery.
Right.
That's the only thing I can think of.
Right.
There's a good baker, there's a fishmonger.
There's 19,000 coffee shops.
I know.
Same amount of charity shops.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a great town, and I always think here, it's kind of like it was weird growing up here because the sectarianism, all that kind of thing. It's not that it didn't exist here. I'm not saying that, but it didn't exist. I couldn't think of a better place to have grown up.
Well, because my wife grew up here,
right?
And I grew up in North Belfast, and when she met me. She was I was the first person she ever met who didn't have a proper job, as she put it.
Right.
But also she didn't really have an idea of the sort of breadth and depth of the political history here, and I think thought I was exaggerating about it until she started reading into it. She was like, that just didn't really affect us.
The first time people leave Hollywood, they're like, oh Jesus Christ,
yeah,
these people were not messing about. But it was just, I mean, it's very unique here because like growing up. If you were out as a teenager with like 10 mates walking down the high street, chances are someone maybe had a Celtic top on, somebody maybe had a Rangers top on in the same group, and that was just bizarre. In the 90s, that was bizarre.
Yeah,
and it wasn't that there definitely is sectarian, like there's like 2 paramilitary guys here, but like it's just the 2 of them, you know, and it's just like
and
they're
brothers.
Not, yeah, and they're opposite sides. It's a sitcom waiting to be written, or an illustration book. But yeah, I love here, but I think you probably have a different appreciation for it because you spend so much time away as well. So you know the word a little bit better.
Yeah, no, well, absolutely. So I grew up in North Belfast, and one of the things that struck me about living in Hollywood is that the sun sets so much later here. Because you're in the shadow of the Cave Hill over there.
The sun just wants to spend a wee bit more time.
It just does. It just
having
does.
a look, doesn't it? Can't bring itself to go back over Cave Hill.
No.
Did you what kind of childhood did you have? Like, do you have a?
That's a tough one. I don't really know because, you know, like, what kind of childhood did you have? Like, can you say normal? Because compared to what?
Yeah,
no, I had a great childhood.
I know what you mean. Yeah, I know what you mean. It is hard to say because you can't compare it to.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely was exposed to violence. I knew people who were involved. I knew people who got hurt. The Lansdowne used to get blown up all the time, and the phones would go around and like, open your windows so they don't blow through, and there was all of that, but just sort of, you know, you get on with things. I think our childhood was different in a way because my mother was sick. She had MS the whole life growing up, so I have no memory of her walking, but she was this absolute epicenter of the household. So the nurses would come in 2 or 3 times a day. Her siblings or cousins, that would just be like a sort of a free for all, and that was brilliant. It was just, you know, like you're a parent now, and that old saying, it takes a village to raise a child, it's because it does. And it's just that sense of community. And although we had a community, like, you get to pick your family in New York, it's different when it's actual family and just being surrounded by so many people who have just a shared upbringing and experience. And
my grannies would have been that, like, and she was that figure of, like, my granny would just sit in the kitchen in her chair reading the paper, having a cup of tea, and everyone just went to her,
just
and that was kind of the hub of it all. And it's very difficult when I think my granny passed away like 8 years ago, more actually. I never know births. Or like, I don't know years or anything like that.
But I bet you remember football statistics dating back to
if you want to talk about the 1990-2000 season of United, not a problem. But if you want to talk about close family members passing, not a clue.
It's like, I struggle to remember our wedding anniversary, but I can still remember the phone number of the pizza place that I used to dial from the Shore Road.
And you were living in Brooklyn. It wasn't cost effective.
This is going back to 20 years ago. Like, but I'm not good with numbers, but I can see patterns, and so it's not the number I remember; it's the pattern on the phone.
Yes, but we lost that kind of. When she passed, we lost that kind of center of everything. You know, everyone then goes off to do their own thing, but that was such an amazing time. And that they're the best memories of, like, everyone being in the one place and who's going to call in.
I know, but, you know, I'll pontificate here for a second. I'll get on my soapbox. I do think that we've been sort of experiencing the slow breakdown of community for the last several generations, and I think it was sort of held back here a little bit because, like, everything was held back, you know, we were sort of stuck in the past, and that wasn't always a bad thing. But I think we're starting to recognize that now, you know, that everybody's, you know, in a world where you're all important, it's all about you, everybody's expected to do everything for themselves, and really what we miss and want most is each other. And it's just, I think that's why everything feels so turbulent and broken right now. It's because we're sort of recognizing nothing fits, nothing feels right.
The second it changed was when keys weren't left in the door. Keys in the front door.
Well, we never even bothered locking them. It was just open.
Yep. But when I literally feel like I can remember the time where everyone collectively were like, this is mental that we're doing this. Let's take our key out and lock this door. There was, like, any relative or friend you went to, you just either knocked and then opened or you just walked in. And that is the thought of doing that myself. I'm like, well, there's not a mission I'd leave a key in the door. But everywhere was an open house back then.
No, you're absolutely right. The only time, there was 1 week of the year where our actual front door was closed, and that was when we went to Edinburgh for the 1 week in August every year. That was it.
Right.
And then the rest of the time, it was just anybody could walk in.
And do kids still call for people? I feel like that's arranged by the parents.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
Someone would just be at the door. Coming out.
Is Connor coming out? No. Is Connor's football coming out?
Were you? Let me ask you this: if your ball was being used in the street, and you get called in for dinner, Are you taking the ball with you?
Absolutely not. No, somebody just kicks it into the hedge or over the
That's
gate.
where we're different. Under the arm.
Really?
Yeah.
So,
just in case someone eggs it. Remember that phenomenon?
oh God, yeah.
You sat in the ball and egged it, and there was kids that
Why were you
out of spite did that.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know anybody like that.
Right, well, I 100%. I took my ball, my goalpost, my corner flags, brought my linesman in.
And the sponsors.
we were so official with the football matches and all.
I'll tell you another big difference. I was looking through photographs that my dad had, in the box of photographs. They don't really get that anymore.
No.
And there was photographs of us on our street, and it's a street that's maybe 500 meters long. You could count maybe 12 cars parked on it.
Right, yeah.
And so there was room to play.
Yeah.
And then that's where my granny lived in that street, and she died a couple of years ago when we drove up. Couldn't get parked.
Yeah. I tell you what, that's funny you say that, because I experienced this week exactly the same thing. I drove down my granny's old street, and there was one side of the road that you always played on. This is a small council estate street, very narrow road. One side would have the odd car, and the other side was totally clear of cars, and that's where you kick the football against that fence. That thing, though, you couldn't walk down it because it's just cars. So that's funny you make that point.
I was trying to teach my son the rules of Kirby.
Right. Now this is controversial, because what you were teaching him was your version.
Well, that's the only version.
First of all, we agree on Kirby.
Yes.
Straight away. See this whole Cribby thing? You see it on Facebook
Kirby?
all the time.
No, it's Kirby.
Belfast Live. Is it Cribby or is it Kirby? It's not a debate. It's Kirby.
It's Kirby because you're hitting it off the fucking curb.
Yeah. What's a crib?
Yeah. You get your wee sister's bed out there. Yeah. You're bouncing off that.
Now, let's talk about that game. So, the way we played it was, you are obviously, anyone agrees, no matter what you call it, you're on one pavement trying to throw it and hit the other pavement.
Yeah.
Now, would you play this thing where if you did that and it hit and then you jumped out and caught it?
Yes.
You're in the middle of the road now?
Yeah,
right.
And then you can keep going until you miss, but then if the person gets it, they can hit you.
And you're bust. Yes, this has never happened. Two people have never agreed on this.
No, what about if a car comes along? Do you get 3 points if you throw it while the car is going over?
But no one ever did it, yet everyone claimed they had done it in the last time they played Kirby.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll give up.
And you get 2 points if you hit it off the curb and you catch it before it touches the ground on your own curb.
People will bullshit, so it would be like if you throw it over the car and then it comes back through the window of the car and then you catch it and do a somersault, you
win.
You get all your toys. You know, people like,
you win.
Everyone had such bullshit.
Anyway, walking around Hollywood trying to find 2 curbs to play Kirby on with my son.
No, it's not going to happen.
Not going to happen.
But I was thinking about, what do you think of this an idea? I was thinking of an online video series where I challenge well-known people to Kirby. It's like,
where would you play it? You're going to have to get planning permission or something from the council.
I know a wee spot, but I'll give it to you after, because I give it now, it'll be chock-a-block.
Okay.
There'll be hundreds of people down.
People in their 30s.
Trying to relive you crying.
With their flyaway balls.
No, you don't play Kirby with a flyaway.
No, you don't, actually, that's true.
I love how serious you got that.
Yeah.
Those. Do you know what really pushed me back to that time as well, of like playing Kirby in your granny's house and all that? Remember ferns? Remember the plant, a fern? Maybe there's a different name for it. Do you know what I'm talking about? Remember the smell of ferns?
I do, yeah.
When was the last time you smelled a fern, Oliver?
Maybe in a walk through a forest, and I just didn't quite realise what that was. I remember you would get nettles and then jaggies, and but beside a jaggy there would be the dock leaf. It's apparently the antidote.
Yep.
I told my wee brother once that nettles only sting if you brush against them. If you grab them really, really hard, then they don't get a chance to. And he did, and he had to go to the emergency room. And I was just like, he just didn't do it fast enough.
Yeah, people were like, if you touch the middle and not the end. But who was doing that? Oh, just touch the middle then. Yeah. That's weird, because my uncle always told me you had to piss on it.
No, that's a
jellyfish
thing. Yeah,
that's not what he told me. I would get stung quite a lot.
That's a thing that's happening because of the climate change. Is there's jellyfish populations?
I thought you were uncles pissing on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
When was the last time you saw a jellyfish?
My son got really badly stung. We were in the Mediterranean and we went swimming, and he just started screaming. Couldn't understand what it was. And then after about 15 seconds, this absolute massive welt. And the tentacle must have been about, a foot long and just across his knee. And took him in, and there was a hotel nearby, and the one of the barmen came out and he put brown vinegar on it, which seemed to placate it. But he had to go to the hospital, and there's lots of little tiny stingers that are still in there. They had to like remove them.
So I was swimming in Torella Beach in Newcastle when the weather in like August there when the weather was quite nice, and I saw quite a few in the water, and I was asking a lifeguard, are they dangerous and stuff? He's like, not really. Like you know, keep an eye out. These ones look for, these ones not. At that moment, I was on my way. I was in the water and I saw a seal in the, like, not that far away at all, just like a wee baby seal.
Was it screaming because it got stung?
No, the seal was, I think their skin wouldn't allow for that.
Probably.
But, Tony, look that up. But, can seals be stung by jellyfish?
So, well, yeah, there's quite a number of things we're researching here. Is poppers nitrous oxide? What's the population of Belfast? Can seals be stung by jellyfish?
Well, Jeeves is going to know it all. But I was swimming out.
Jeeves?
Do you remember Jeeves?
How old are you?
How old's Jeeves? Jeeves is still going. Do you remember? I remember Ask Jeeves. Lycos.
Yeah.
All the old search engines.
Now you just ask Siri, don't you?
Yeah, but like that, which is sly of Jeeves because he's still working. You know what I mean? But no one's really just asking. Like it'll take him a while.
Yeah.
Like, and he'll tell you it wrong.
Yeah.
And he'll be like, "You sure?" He'll be like,
Yeah,
"Fuck, he's confused."
I know. But that's like when you can look things up now, the sort of the death of the bar bet, where basically you just keep debating until somebody convinces the other person with just more confidence and authority.
Yeah.
That
Someone brings an encyclopedia down to the pub, kills the crack.
Exactly.
Yeah, I nearly got killed by. You're not allowed to go on pet seals if you see them in open water. The lifeguard who told me about the jellyfish, after I asked him about that, I was like, I'm going to go and get close to this seal because I thought what an unbelievable moment. It was just a baby seal, and the guy was like, good crack up until that point, and he said, that will rip your face, like a seal will kill you. And I was like, no, it's a seal. And he's like, yeah, but don't swim towards it because then you're going to their habitat.
Yeah.
So that was a close call.
And the mummy seal think you're trying to kidnap the baby seal or something.
Yeah. So that was a close call.
Yeah.
But was your son okay after the jellyfish thing?
Yeah. Well, he wasn't right for a while, but yeah, he was eventually okay.
That's one of those ones, shit at the time, but cool. Going back to school and stuff.
I think he's forgotten about it, thankfully. Although he gives jellyfish a wide berth now.
Right.
It ruins sea swimming though.
Yeah. Well, if you go wetsuit,
that sort of defeats the purpose of sea swimming though, doesn't it?
Yeah, but keeps you warm, and then you do away in it.
Or just go to the Mediterranean.
Yeah. When you moved to America, was there like not a guarantee that things would go well for you or you'd be successful, but were you fairly certain?
Not even slightly. Not remotely.
Right.
I learned when I was first there that it's possible to survive off of Weetabix for a week.
Right. Now, let me ask you this. When you were going for a serving of Weetabix, how many are you putting in that bowl, big shooter?
It depends on how many I had left. I was rationing them.
Right. An ideal world.
3.
Okay.
3. But so my friend Mac, he once had this brilliant idea to save money for beer, to basically eat vitamin sandwiches. So the vitamins would, keep his body healthy, and the bread would fill his belly. Right. I think he lasted about 4 days, and his stomach still hasn't. It's never quite recovered.
No, that's not. He's a nutritionist as well. That's not sweet. So were you?
No, there's absolutely no guarantee at all of success.
And what was your first place like that you went and stayed in?
First place actually was because I was dragging, and maybe this is why I had to eat Weetabix. Well, I got a really, really nice apartment for like 6 months when we first moved there, because I was dragging Suzanne over with me, and she wasn't all that keen on coming. So I was like, right, I want to get somewhere amazing, try and totally win her over. And
little penthouse at Grant.
Well, no, it was on the Bowery.
Right.
And it was this old warehouse, and it used to be a blues club, and so it was really big, and there was like, classic loft where there was just one big massive open space, and then somebody had handmade like this balcony, and that's where the bed was, and then the rest of it was like a dining table and a couple of chairs and plants. Yeah. It was just massive open space. So it was like that, and then when the lease on that ran out, we moved across the street to somewhere that's probably smaller than this room,
right, and
cost 3 times as much,
right.
And it was just like, right, how is this gonna go?
But are you someone who, personally, I think that kind of, I work well under that kind of pressure of, well, at that point you got to make it work.
Yeah, definitely. I've been operating on a zero margin of error policy for about 20 years. I've always did my homework at the last minute, always leave a deadline to the last minute.
What exactly were you specialising in at that point? Was it like more of the fine art stuff, or was it illustration?
It was, I think it was a combination of both. My first book had come out at that point. So because I started off thinking that I wanted to be a fine artist, and then through doing that, discovered that books were actually this brilliant way to sort of tell visual stories. got a book published, and then kept going with the fine art. And back then, galleries would be they'll be interested in my work, and then whenever they found out that I was the same person doing these picture books, they'd suddenly lose interest.
Why, so as like a snobby kind of thing?
Yeah, right. The art world used to be a lot more snobby than it is now, believe it or not. And you had to be one thing,
right?
You know, like you were either a sculptor or that was it. Whereas now, you know, the discipline or the boundaries between all these disciplines is completely blurred. So and there was definitely like a kind of looking down their nose at illustration, especially picture book illustration.
Yeah.
So I had to fight extra hard, but I really wanted that. And so, yes, it was that drive to, I know I'm good enough to make this work. I just have to keep going.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people fall at the first hurdle of, you know, when I go in and talk to our college students, I always sort of say, like, there's one thing that you have to do. You have to ask yourself, are you good enough? And just, you know, we watch enough Hollywood movies to sort of believe that if you want it badly enough, you'll get it. And that doesn't work.
Yeah.
You might not be good enough.
Yeah.
But if you believe you're good enough, then you've already won twice, because you'll get used to hearing no, and you won't need anybody else's opinion.
Yeah.
And so people ask me, it was like, do things often not go your way, or do things not work? And I was like, all the time. And I was like, well, you know, how do you feel about that? I was like, you just don't think about it. You move on.
Yep.
And it's like the almost like be the river, not the rock. Just find a way. Just find another way.
The no's are tough at the start.
They are, because you take it personally.
Yeah.
And then I think one of the greatest secrets of life is realizing that everybody is full of shit, and nobody really knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
Or talking about.
Yeah.
And when you really think about it, it was like, whose validation is it that I'm actually trying to find here? Who is it I'm trying to impress?
Yeah.
And when you can't come up with an answer for that, you're like, well, then why do I care?
Well, I would, if I had an idea for like a project or a sketch or something, I would submit it to a broadcaster, to one broadcaster. And if they said no,
that would be it.
No matter how buzzing I was about that idea,
do you still do that?
Absolutely. My first protocol is it possible to make it myself? And if that's not possible, then speak to like a broadcaster or a channel. But I'm always more excited to do something myself.
Because you'll have absolute control then.
I can control when it goes out, how it looks, the title, even things like the title of it.
Yeah.
I think because I wanted to do loads of TV stuff when I first started doing stand-up. I thought that'd be a great way for people to come to the shows. I just decided, well, I'm just going to be on TV, and I spread myself far too thin. Yeah. I would have done anything. I was pursuing like things that I probably wasn't that suitable for, and if I came up with ideas, I would just let them die at the first no. And nowadays with like Patreon and the podcast and things,
Patreon's fantastic, isn't it?
It's incredible. Like I think people like this. People like you, they want to see the thing that you originally wanted to make.
Yeah.
But I've done stuff for TV. I've done good stuff for TV before, but I've done shit stuff before.
Yeah. An easy way to look at Patreon is you're just pre-selling.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like people are giving you money for nothing. No, you're getting paid to do what it is that you do.
Yeah.
But people are just supporting that in advance.
Yeah, I think lockdown was great for me to realise I can just do this kind of myself, because I was doing everything DIY, and I was...
Meanwhile, he's in a room with 3 other people.
Hey, I work hard in this podcast.
Clearly all the research you do.
But I say if I do, like... Because at the start of this podcast, I would have done like loads of reading and things like that, but then I'm then trying to fit in certain questions, and I get worried about that. I'm like, do I have enough time? Whereas I like it just to flow.
You know, no, I have to say I kind of take your approach to things. I probably shouldn't say this. At the interview, I brought a bunch of people here for a festival we were doing as part of this sculpture, and I was interviewing some of them, and one of them was a friend of mine that I've known for a while, and then I was so busy with all the rest of it, I was like, I actually haven't watched any of his films at all. And he's like a well-known film director, and like people are going to really be on top of his game. It's like, there's only one way I can do this, which is just talk about process and the feeling and the thoughts and him as a person. And so I did zero research whatsoever, and we just had a chat. And he says it was one of the best interviews, because normally he's asking
stock questions,
like stock questions and very specific questions.
Yeah.
Whereas this was about general sweeps. And, So I approve of your method.
Thank you. What was the moment where if you went over there thinking, who knew, like you had the belief, but you weren't, nothing was guaranteed? What was the point where you realized, like, okay, there is a career here, like this is
I knew there was a career there. There was a possibility of a career, otherwise I wouldn't have gone. And I knew it was going to be hard, but there was no real one moment, the before and after. It was just, was like, oh right, yeah, I'm sort of not worried about that as much this month as it was like a year ago. And I think I'm always looking forward and not really in the rear view mirror too much, because I think you can land too hard on patting yourself in the back and resting your laurels, and it's like, no, it's on to the next.
Yeah.
And so even when something goes well, I don't often sit back and take stock of that.
Definitely,
I think there was a few moments that was like, oh wow, this is sort of a big deal. When one of my books, the publisher threw a party because it had been on the number one in the New York Times bestseller list for a solid year, and at that point, so they were throwing this party, and I overheard my wife say to somebody, "Oh, I should probably read it now, shouldn't I?" And I think another moment was when I had a solo show in a Chelsea gallery, and my name was in the window, and I was like, "That's special."
Yeah, I'm exactly the same, and I don't like to dwell on things that have gone great or things that on paper you're like, that's brilliant, because you have to be thinking about the next thing and how can I make it better. And I think before I would have done, like, I remember the first time I did Ulster Hall, I took like loads of time off after it to do nothing, just to be like, I need to recuperate, but I didn't. I don't ever work. I suppose my job is I'm just professionally me, and so it takes, if we take time off, we'll have to take at least 3 weeks off, because it'll take me about a week and a half to actually get used to slowing down, and then I do a few days that I was like, oh, I'm bored now. My brain's always working. The stuff you did with U2, I mean, that's very
that was very cool, actually. Yes, seeing on Times Square when they did this thing and all my art was all up the walls with them playing. That was very, very cool. Did you go
to Times Square to see that?
Yeah,
like that must be, because that image, we're talking about New York being familiar, even if you haven't been before, but Times Square is the place you go and go, well, I know this, even if you haven't seen it.
Exactly.
But to then see, because I've had that thought before of like, God, imagine I brought out a special on Netflix or something, and it was up here and I was looking at it, so to actually see your own work there, and the thousands of people that are also looking at it, that must be a very surreal moment.
It really was. But working with those guys was incredible.
I would have been telling people, by the way, hey guys, whoa, guys, up here. It would piss me off if people weren't looking at it.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't do that. Right. I didn't do that. I almost, I couldn't go into Waterstones for a year after my first book came out.
Right.
Because it was like, I don't know, it feels too self-indulgent or something. Yeah. I also used to work in Waterstones, so I knew most of them.
Right. Now, when you got approached to do this stuff with U2, that must be very cool, because they could work with anybody in the world. Yeah. But why did they? What was the connection that they came to you?
So the connection was, I met Bono in a bar. We have a mutual friend, and he came along and was like, oh, there's Bono. And there was like 5 of us sitting around a table, and he was sitting beside me, but I wasn't really going to super fan, and we're sort of talking, and it was getting quite late on. And then he lit up a cigarette, and I was like, can you smoke in here? And he was like, I think so. And I was like, well, sure, give us one. If you're doing it, I'll do it. Right. And we... then I continued talking to the person to my left. He was talking to the person to his right, and we both went for the ashtray at the same time. And I accidentally put my cigarette out in the back of his hand. And I was like, oh, there's only one way to deal with this. I was like, oh, sure, don't worry about it. You got 2 hands and you're shouting the guitar anyway. And he just laughed, and he was like, who are you? Like, and what do you do? And so I was like, all right, okay, I'm Oliver. I make picture books, mostly enjoyed by children. And when I've said that before, people kind of say, oh, that's cool, and don't really know what to say about it. But he just right away, without missing a beat, goes, wow, what a responsibility. I was like, excuse me? He was like, you're a human being's first counterpoint to the cultural world. And I was like, oh, yeah.
That's 10 pints in, that's deep.
Yeah, that was deep. So we got talking, and then I was telling him about some of the art that I did, and I sent him a copy of the monograph, like the art book that I have. And then his team got in touch to ask if I would... do the visuals for his TED talk, because I was doing some work with TED at that point, and they showed me the talk, and I was talking about it, and I was like, I don't think my style will suit this. It seems too whimsical compared to what he's saying. And I think he really respected that I wasn't just...
Well, that's what I'm talking about at the start, spreading yourself too thin. It's incredible to get to the point where you're able to say, I wouldn't be great for this, so...
It felt like it would be a squandered opportunity.
Yeah.
But I was at TED anyway, and he asked me to be part of this workshop that he was doing, and my friend and I went along, and it was for the charity One. And so we ended up, and it was like, filled with CEOs and like really, the top people in multiple industries, and there's me sitting there going, what am I doing here? And after about day 2, I realized what I was doing there. I was like, I'm going to be the asshole who asks the stupid, obvious question. And I did. And, someone in was like, who's this for? Things like that. You're like, just really obvious questions. And I think that was my job, was to just keep it simple.
Yep.
And I ended up making a small film based on that, and I got him to do the audio for it, the voiceover. He saw that the same day they were thinking about doing a music video, asked me to do that, and then that led on to doing the art for their tour and a whole bunch more.
Did you go to some of those live shows and see?
Oh yeah, I mean, I was rehearsing with them in Vancouver. I would be in backstage, and they were like, "Oliver, what did you think?" Like giving Edge guitar notes and everything. It was like,
Edge is like, "Burn me too."
Yeah,
it's rite of passage. The support band all lining up.
No, I remember one time it was like they when they were doing the European tour, then they brought me, because they were going to change some of the content of the visuals, and they flew me over to Milan where they were rehearsing and sort of changing the gig, and I kind of walked into the arena and they were rehearsing, and like obviously it's empty, and I just sort of walk at the back and they're mid song, and then they noticed me and they're like, "Oh, hi Oliver," like all of them, and I was just like, that's fucking, like, that was really cool. Did anybody get that in video? But yeah, there was a bunch of stories like that where, like, he gave me a shout out a couple of times, but I always missed him because it was like either the night I wasn't there or
That's
one
such a
night,
baller move.
I know. Well, one night it was Giant Stadium, and they were doing the Joshua Tree tour, and we went with the mutual friend who introduced us, and Suzanne was heavily pregnant, and so then Bono's assistant came over and was like, "Do you guys want to ride in the car back to New York with him to go to the after party?" And we're like, "Oh no, we drove." And Suzanne's like, no, you guys should do that. She was like, "Look, I'm not going to go for a drink anyway. I might leave early." So she was ushered out about 4 songs before the end, straight to the cars in New Jersey, driving back into New York. And then we were gathered to go in the car right before the last song, because as soon as like the last note hits out, they get in, drive off, like a police escort motorcade the whole way through. Yeah. And apparently in that last song, he gave me a shout out, but I was in this fucking car, so I didn't hear it. And anyway, so we get to the from Giant Stadium to the hotel in Manhattan that the after party's at in about 20 minutes, because we got a police escort. And so first drink, and I was like, just text Suzanne, I was like, making sure you got home okay. And she was like, "I'm still in New Jersey. The roads were closed because apparently there was a motorcade." Took about 3 hours to get home. Felt kind of
That's like collaborations like that. Like, have you been approached by anybody really well known that you have said no to, that you're like you said, I don't think it would fit, don't think it would work?
Yeah, I have, yeah. I don't want to say who though.
No, I'm not going to ask you.
But yes, because it's got to work, you have to...
Singer?
No, it doesn't matter really.
No.
But it's it has to work. I think when you're doing something, you have to understand why you want to do it.
Yeah.
And is this for notoriety? Is this because it's going to make me look cool? Is this going to actually further my message, or whatever it is? And I think you have to be, at a certain point, not spreading yourself too thin and basically self-edit.
Yeah.
Because you do only have so much time.
Was it difficult when you start branching into picture books, you're doing sculpture type stuff, then TV, obviously, films, did you get that right from the start of what you should be focusing on and your time?
I think so, yes. So I've never really defined myself as necessarily an artist per se, or even as an author, because it's, even in doing A-level art, I wasn't the best at actual art in my class. It was just I could see patterns and I could sort of get a sense of things and a feel of things. And it's, people say, what medium do you use? And I was like, honestly, whatever's closest to hand, whatever will sort of suit best. So I'm in between oil paints and watercolor or collage or even sculpture or film or poetry or writing or whatever it is. So I've never been defined by one particular way of making something or doing something. It's like whatever will fit this best, whatever will make this feel right. So yes, I suppose the films and the collaborations have all been, for me, a natural extension of the way that inside my head works.
Has becoming a dad changed your approach to work in any way?
Yes, absolutely, in 2 different ways. One, how you schedule your time, because I would just sort of like work whenever I felt like working, and then all of a sudden there's responsibilities. The other people depend on you, schools, meal times, bedtime, so on. So I have to be a lot more structured now, and don't get as many just sort of open windows to work. But in the work that I was making before, even the books and in the art, so much of it was just like kind of, vague. Like in the books, it was I just thought I was being entertaining. I was just telling good stories, and then what people would say, like, well, now that you're going to be a dad, is that going to change the books you make? I think they were thinking like, oh, you're going to make books of whatever your kid's into.
Yes.
But it wasn't that way at all. It's suddenly whenever he showed up, I was like, wait a minute, he doesn't know anything at all. I'm gonna have to teach him everything and like explain the world, and the world seems very broken right now, and sort of trying to process all that. I ended up making him a book called Here We Are, which is like basically a guide to Earth for the newly arrived. And in doing that, I then started realizing that, you know, I've had these opinions my whole adult life about various things, but I never felt it was my place to speak on them or comment on them. But suddenly as a parent, I was like, well, nobody else is, and so if I'm not, then who is going to?
I definitely see that through your books of you taking people on a guide to show things instead of...
Suzanne, my wife, is very good. She was like, don't ever try and tell somebody what to think or what to do. Don't be preachy. And so what I try to do is just sort of point out very simple, obvious truths in a way that you can't really disagree with.
Yeah. Do you think you changed as a person? I mean, obviously everyone does to an extent, but what ways do you think you changed when you became a dad?
I think I became more focused on what it is that I want my work to do.
Yeah.
I think it there was a more of an urgency in it.
Time is something I get massively. Like I love like just being like a creative guy. You could dip into this, do a bit of that.
I haven't quite found the exact rhythm yet that works for everybody, but I will go between bursts of like, look, I'm just going to be on for a couple of days here, and I'll go back and work late into the night after the kids go down, just because it's an uninterrupted road. Yeah. But I don't like to do that too often, and then so when I'm off, I want to really be off and be around and be present, because you know it's like when your kid wants you to play with them, and you're like, oh no, I'm too busy. As my older brother points out, because his lads are like 11 and 14. He was like, they've gone now, you know, they're not interested in me anymore. I was like, just cherish this.
Yes.
And you hear it often enough, but it's like, you know what, you're right. It's just be present there for a minute, and like whatever the email that you need to do or whatever it was that you need to do, you probably won't remember that in a week.
Yep, I've got far better about if we're away or we're doing something, my phone's away.
Yeah.
It's not because I definitely I was like, you know, doing something with a kid, and also I'm like, I've got to send this email, but I didn't really have to send it, you know, could have done it that night, or I could have done it later on.
I don't, you know, I'm not a perfect dad. I get frustrated that I can't control everything.
Yeah.
That, you know, it's like it takes 45 minutes to leave the house because, you know, he can't find the exact hoodie, or my daughter's shoes are on the wrong feet, or whatever it is. And it's like, that's when I start to get frustrated because I can't control it.
Now, the thing in our family is it's me who's holding everyone up for those reasons.
Because your shoes are on the wrong feet.
I since I've become a dad, I take myself way less seriously. Yeah. Like, way less seriously. I'm far less conscious about, like, the way I like to look good, but I'm like way less conscious about that, and that's really helped my stand up massively, because I used to worry about like I used to try and come across as like slick and quite cool, and then as soon as second I had kids, I was like, I'm not a cool guy. And
so did you immediately start telling dad jokes as well?
Yeah, more the way I'm more comfortable in a fleece now, for example. You know, and
Careful, there's going to be the cardigans with the patches and the elbows next.
Bring it on. I'm saying things like shenanigans, palaver, all that kind of stuff, and that's just, I'm realizing like that's just
it's a genetic shift.
Yeah, and I'm being like sillier, because I am like a silly guy, but I was fighting against that, I think, when I was like just a guy, and then when I became a dad, I was like, oh, this my personality is like to be silly and to be a bit of a clown.
Yeah. What do you think? What are your sort of objectives for parenting then? Do you just want to get out of the road and let them be them, or do you have?
Yeah, I what I thought it was going to be like versus what it's like, totally different. So like, I love football. I'm massively into football, and I always had that thing of if I have sons, I want them to be they'll be into football, and then the second they came along, I buy them the odd football shirt, but I would love it if they were into football, but it will make no difference if they're not. And I think I would have thought beforehand, I'll be disappointed if my kids aren't into football, whereas now I will only be disappointed if they're getting into it for me.
Right.
If that makes sense.
That does make sense, yeah, because they want to please you.
Yeah. I want them to do whatever they want to do.
How very deep, Shane.
Thank you. I'm capable of that sometimes.
Yeah. What surprised us is that when the second one showed up, that they weren't a carbon copy of the first one. Right. And their own little personality just there. Yeah. So, with with Harlan, our son, was like when he was at a certain age, he would let me dress him or whatever, and it was like I'd sartorially style him and like I'm looking just so. And then at a certain point, he was just like, no, I just want to wear sports gear.
Yeah.
It was like so disappointing. But Mary, right from the beginning, she's like, nope, she's going to wear a tutu with tap shoes and jeans back to front. And I was like, that's that. So
I think I also, at the start of Parenthood, was like everything was like by the book and the right way and this kind of thing. And I've come way more around to the phrase of an easy life. Let's just... Like sometimes I'm getting better at like letting some stuff go. Yeah. Do you know what? He's on an iPad there, and I would prefer he wasn't. But it's giving us 10 minutes peace here, and you get a lot of. You see on social media if there's a celebrity out and their kids are at a restaurant and they've got an iPad in their hands. Well, of course they probably don't want that.
Yeah.
But like
they also just want to have a conversation with each other.
Yeah. I'm also like weirdly more emotional at the minute, and that's only come from having the second kid. I don't know why, but like I'm more.
Maybe it's the change, Shane.
What do you mean? You think I'm going through
menopause,
something?
Yeah.
I 100% would be the first guy to go through the menopause.
What do you think about the future that your children are going to grow up in? How do you feel about that?
Oh, I'm self-confessed.
Not going to think about it.
Flamingo. Did they bury their heads in sand? Or is that an emu?
No, that's an ostrich.
I'm an ostrich. I look like a flamingo, but I'm an ostrich.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do that too.
Yeah.
I bury my head in the sand and stand on one leg doing it.
Yeah.
A
flam ostrich.
I cover my ears to all.
Okay. Glorious oblivion.
Yeah.
Glorious obliviousness, rather.
That's me.
Yeah. Okay. Do you know, there is something to be said for that. Honestly, I stopped reading the news about 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And felt immediately better about myself.
Oh, welcome to my world. I don't know anything. I am going through life blissfully ignorant. Yeah. I don't know what's happening.
I figured that if something really important happens, I'll eventually hear about it. Like, did you hear there's a war going on?
Give me a shout. Or like if the day my bins go out changes.
Yeah.
Let me know by all means. Yeah. But I don't want to know. Yeah, like...
No, I do think that one of the reasons why people feel so sort of upset and frustrated and everything is that bad news sells.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
It's a business. It's...
Well, when was the last time you put on the news and it was one of those silly stories? You know, it's fucking... You used to put on the local news and it would be a trouble story, something from the world stage, and then they would go, and here's a fella who had 4 cream eggs in an hour in Dungannon in a shed, and they go to him, maybe just some guy,
more of that,
chocolate
please.
all over his face. Where's that? All that stuff.
No.
That guy's probably dead, to be fair, if he was doing that every day. But those I'm finally stories were brilliant.
Yeah.
You know, there was silly stuff on the news.
They just don't do that anymore.
It is all just
sensational,
emergency type stuff, alert, threat, all those kind of words. I couldn't deal with it. I got really like into the news for a while, and fuck you, Tony. I was interested in going.
It's better than being in the news, I suppose.
Exactly. And then I was listening to Nolan in the morning, and I was listening to political debate every day, and I was starting my day like not confrontational, but like tense.
That there is something about that everybody just is out there. Everybody wants to be right, and you know like when you ask somebody what they want, they tend to answer what they don't want. And it really is just like this kind of defensive negativity that's just around. Whereas really all people are the same. All people just want the same stuff.
Yeah, and I think, you know, when it comes to like the planet and the environment, that's totally different. But I'm sure every generation was like, see, when my kids are older, they're doomed. You know, it's going to be this and that. But with the climate change stuff, that is different because that genuinely is like a terrible thing. But I think like we think we're living in like one of the worst generations, but
well, in reality, actually, I think it's probably a better time to be alive than ever before.
Yeah,
you know, there's so much good is happening, but we're completely, I think, swamped by the Heelys.
Yeah.
What's Heelys?
Well, my dad's generated the shoes with the rollerblades.
You're absolutely, yeah.
My dad couldn't do it in his generation.
I know, and the light up lights.
One, Dennis, you know.
You know the light up shoes that the. There was a burglar caught recently because they were wearing those and ran into the forest.
Were they called LA Lights?
Yes.
Remember those? They were brilliant.
Remember Reebok Pump?
Yeah. No, maybe.
Am I too old for you?
Reebok Classic, not Reebok.
No, the Reebok Pump, and there was the basketball and the tongue, and you pump it up, and like the air fills around your shoe.
Oh wow!
And then Nike came out with Nike Air, which was like, well, no, there's just you don't have to do it on yourself.
What's your like spend advice for mates football shirts? Is there like a little thing When you complete a project, when that dough hits a bank, you go, I'm gonna buy myself one of those.
It used to be clothes, but I sort of just like buy nice clothes whenever I see the nice clothes that'll suit me.
Yeah.
I think travel.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Now, let me ask you this.
Or
right?
a good meal.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think our palate would be different. I think you would take me somewhere.
Like an omakase sushi tasting menu, something like that.
Do they do sausages?
I don't think they do. Sausage.
No. I no. I like. Do you like Nando's?
I don't think I've ever been in Nando's.
Oliver.
What?
Would you like to go to Nando's? No pressure.
Yeah.
No pressure.
What's
Would you like to go to Nando's sometime?
Sure. Aye.
Now,
Are you banned? All right, we'll go
Yeah.
splits. We'll go splits.
no, I get it. Now, let me ask you this.
I'll get the taxi there.
Oh, we're having pints? Because I can drive.
All right, yeah, you just drive then.
I'll drive and I'll get your Nando's.
And I'll have pints and poppers.
Pints and poppers. If we don't start a series called Pints and Poppers, something's wrong. Something's wrong. What like? Let me ask you this, right? We just met for the first time.
We'll have.
I feel like there's something there. I know you don't, but don't be close to it, right?
No.
Now, what kind of friend are you? Are you the lift to the airport at an inconvenient time friend? There's no shame in saying you're not.
Oh no, completely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And will you, when you're doing that, when you get up to the airport and you go through the wee drop off,
Yeah.
and if you know it's £1,
Yes.
would you be happy to leave a friend up, pay the £1, and just never mention it again, or will you give a lift to the airport, put the £1 in, but then when the person lands, you go, hey,
You owe me £1.
what about that quid?
My theory is it all comes out in the wash. So you buy somebody dinner, you buy them a few drinks, and then they'll bet you. And it's like, if we were to tally everything up on our deathbeds, probably come out even-ish.
Yeah.
So no, I do not keep score.
Right. Are you looking for new friends, or are you?
Because I'm an easy hit.
Yeah.
Do you know what? Shane, I am.
Are you really, or are you?
Yeah, I'm lonely.
Because I think in my WhatsApp group of mates, we were talking recently about how many like friends you think you have, and everyone's when they worked it out was way lower. And I think a lot of people get to a certain age and they go,
Well, there's people who you
I'm
keep
good.
around because they're entertaining.
Yeah.
You might be that for most people.
yeah. You think I could be your entertaining friend? Yeah, we're not gonna have a chat about fucking knowledge, but I hate all that stuff.
Yes, I think I could be auditioning for the role of an entertaining friend. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I could like don't ask me about the world or
Yeah.
like that
Or I
kind of
could
stuff.
and get hilarious answers.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
it'd be like going to a modern art museum with my dad.
Oh
Sure, I could do that.
no, I went to a museum in Edinburgh, and I surprised myself how much I liked it. It was all like medieval drawings and paintings
Right?
of
Like art and
old
stuff?
people. Well, they weren't old, but they would be.
The drawings were
They
old.
would be considered now old. Well, they'd be dead, but it was like old kings and stuff like that, and I actually really liked it.
What did you like about it?
Just like trying to work out what the person might have been like. So it was like this guy. Oh, this guy was a king of Dundee or whatever, if that's the thing. And
So what was his day like, kind of a thing?
it
or-
would give a wee bit of information about them, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I wonder,
Wonder what he was thinking when this painting was taken.
exactly.
Like,
But some of I wouldn't know a lot about art.
I don't think you have to know a lot about art to.
Do you know what I appreciate? A good caricature. Can I
Right.
just say that?
Yeah. Okay.
When you go on holiday, a good caricature in Tenerife,
That's certainly a skill.
you're down the strip, Place Las
Yeah.
Americas, you get it, and you're like, oh, class, but you're fucking raging because you're like, my ears don't look like it.
So what do people pick out in you as your most obvious feature?
Ears. Well, when I was a kid, it was ears and teeth.
Yeah.
And even the caricatures, fucking no mercy. These boys were going in hard. I was like, I'm 5, mate, so you no need. My ears are bigger than my head, apparently. I hated that.
I had the opposite problem because I've never met anybody with smaller ears than me.
You do have small ears.
Yeah. And I only just recently worked out it's why my hearing isn't as good. Because they're there for a reason. These are like satellite dishes to
Yes.
bounce the noise inside your head.
Have you ever done like live, like naked drawing?
Life drawing.
Live drawing?
Yes.
You have?
Oh yeah. I mean, going to art college, you have to do that. It's like
Really?
somebody said it's like push-ups for artists. Yeah.
And this is an immature question. I don't have to
They
answer.
were fat.
Pardon?
They were fat.
But what, like, I think to do that, to be one of those models, like as a guy, like you gotta
Yeah.
be working with a big piece, right? But did you draw? Were you drawing any pinners?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you had to.
Why were they going in? Why were they signing up to do this?
Are you a prude, Shane?
No. I think, right, if you're a guy that's going to strip totally naked and have a room full of strangers drawn, right?
You have to be a certain type of personality.
Yeah, and just like, I don't know, I think I'd be giggling too much. It was like a wee small dick.
Well, I think a lot of the people who are models tend to be artists themselves and just they get paid to do it.
Right.
It's like, here's a sort of maintain a community of artists.
done it?
I've never posed, but yeah. But yeah, you know, funny, I've never thought about that. It's like there's no shame in it, but would I do it? Probably not.
Yeah. I just don't know where to get those. But like you say, there's probably a lot of artists and things like that.
Yeah.
Have you ever done like, what's a bit of art you've done that you were like, this is the best? Sometimes I'll write a joke and I go, this is the best joke I've ever written. This is going to kill. And I take it out.
And it just doesn't
and
land.
it just doesn't work. And in my head, I'm going...
No, I'm not a good judge of what's going to work and what's not. Sometimes it's like, oh, this is it. This is killer. And then everything else in the show will sell, not that one.
So can you spend ages on a thing and go, this is the best out of it, and it doesn't land as much as other things?
Yeah, completely. Like in some books, it was like, this I think might be my most important work.
Yeah.
This is like going to do this, that, and the other, and then nothing. And then ones that I don't know, you think it's not like throwaway, but it's not nearly the same mental or physical input, and it completely lands. Apparently Lionel Richie was like that. He was never a good judge of what songs of his were going to work.
Right.
Yep. So we've got that in common with him.
I'm sure there's more stuff you guys have in common.
Well, we both like sushi.
Yeah. Do you have things that you would like to do outside what you've already done? Because you're in a lot of different fields, but is there something else you're sitting on going, I'd like to do that?
There's definitely I've got projects lined up, probably if I work with zero margin of error for the next 5 years. And then there's things sort of even beyond that. I was like, I like the idea of this.
Yeah. Anything wacky?
Well, define wacky. Like outside
the box.
a couple of things.
I mean, the people wouldn't expect. I mean, people will go,
definitely.
Whoa.
Yeah. There's definitely a few things in there, but too early to say.
You tell me after we record.
I might do. You promise not to say it in the next podcast.
I won't. I definitely won't.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of similarities there in terms of, like, you know, growing up, maybe the way we grew up and the way you look back at things and kind of like, you know, being parents and your attitude towards it, because that thing about time and the way you look at time now.
Yeah. Well, I was asked once at the Edinburgh Festival, it was like an art college student sort of says, do you have any advice for anybody who's sort of got artist block or stuck? And without having thought about it before, I just answered, remember you'll be dead soon. Yeah. I was like, if that's not a kick in the pants, I don't know what is. It's like, you know, who are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? Yeah. Nobody's going to do this work for you. If you have stuff that you want to get done, just start doing it with a fire in your belly.
Yeah. I always found myself writing in the blurb for new shows, trying like they do in New York every year, up and coming, every year, up and coming. And then there was a point where I was like, I have to ditch that and stop relying on that. It's not even that I see myself as established. It's more just like, get out of that mindset of like
measuring.
Yeah. And say it almost feels like a cop out to be like, this is it's like a crutch or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
I do know what you mean. Yeah.
But things like.
Are you comfortable with your own success now?
No.
Why?
I really, really don't like thinking about it, and I can play up to, you know, like if I do like a big show, we'll do a podcast about it. If my mates are on, we'll like have a bit of a laugh, and I'll talk about how many people are at the show and that kind of thing.
But why do you not like thinking about it? Is it sort of like, I love it, if you think about it too much and take it apart to see why it worked, you might not be able to put it back together again, kind of a thing?
Yeah, or maybe I'll not work as hard or something like that. I don't know. I get too excited by the next thing. I don't think about the next thing as I have to do this. It's more like when I'm finishing the thing that I'm doing, like the cool thing that I'm doing, the next thing it takes more of my. I don't know. I never, like last night doing that thing in Bangor, those 4 gigs. It was so much fun and it was amazing. And to be able to, back in the day, I'd love to have be able to do one show. Mm-hmm. But as soon as it's done and I drive home, I get no dread. I love performing more than any. It's my favorite thing. But as soon as I've done it, I don't even have a thing after it where I'm like, whoa, and I have the adrenaline going.
It was like, yeah, that's in the past now.
That's done.
But I wonder if your definition of success has sort of changed and grown then.
Maybe, yeah.
Like what you thought you wanted 10 years ago, you've got now, but you don't dwell on that. And it's like it's the carrot and stick method. Of
probably see it as more fragile now and like not always guaranteed. Maybe I don't want to get too confident in it in case I get complacent or take my foot off the gas or something like that.
Yeah.
Plus,
well, I don't know if that would come from thinking about it. I think that would come from almost not thinking about it.
Yeah. I can definitely appreciate that everything's going really well, and I'm so happy with, like, I'm very like happy guy, but yeah, I always think, well, come on, like, make sure that the next thing's ready to go. That
doesn't all fall like a house of cards.
Yeah.
So you're driven by fear, basically.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Okay.
Oh no. Am I? Shit. I don't want to be. No, I'm driven by money. What's one, like, your kids are older than mine, so what's one bit of advice, not as a performer or an artist, but as a parent, what's one bit of advice you would give me, or just something you've picked up?
Yeah, there's a thing that my older brother said, and he said it a few times, and it's really landed. He was like, just listen to the small stuff, because if you listen to the small stuff, they'll tell you the big stuff. And it's just like, and I was talking about this in this podcast yesterday, Dr. Becky in the States, and about like parents that have a hard time doing imaginative play or being present for the kids. Is like, what advice would you have for parents that want to come up with imaginative play for their kids? It was like, they don't have to. They just have to be present and lean into it. It's like the kid's going to come with the imagination. You just have to be there and be willing to be on their level and give them time and space. And so I would say that.
My son likes to play a game where he works in Costa, in the coffee branch of Costa.
How specific?
The level of detail this guy does, I swear he's 2.5, and about 2 or 3 days ago, his card machine wasn't working. I was like, I'll just give you like cash. And it's just me with my hand. I was like, I'll give you cash. He's like, nah. We gotta wait till his card machine's up and running.
That's amazing.
I love that.
Watch out, world.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, watch out, Costa, because he is coming for your position.
Yeah. No, I would just say just being present, really.
Yeah.
And listening to them.
Yeah. What's your next project that you can't talk about? What's your like? You have so many, like, I don't know you well, obviously, but you're very like low key. I like that, in terms of the things you're doing and have done. You don't seem to shout about it too much, or.
Well, I do like to try and let the work speak for itself.
Yeah.
And I'll post about things on social media, but it's the there's this thing called the Picasso test of how you feel about other people, and it's like, when you leave somebody's company, do you feel energized or drained? And because apparently Picasso used to just drain people, and I was just like, I was like, why would I, if I'm with somebody whose company I enjoy, why would I want to subject them to that?
Right.
I wouldn't.
Yeah.
So it's just sort of the way in which I go. You should bring your son along to this then, and it's going to be in February, where the scale model of the solar system that we were doing around the UK is coming back, and it's going to start in the Transport Museum and head out towards Hollywood. So it's like a 590 million to 1 scale model of from the sun to Pluto. And it's like 9 kilometers long.
That's class, because that will help children and maybe the odd adult understand things a little bit. I'm not joking. Like, I want to learn way more about space and all that kind of thing, but
there's a lot of it.
Yes, it goes on. And here's the thing about the sky. It probably doesn't end. Well, we don't know yet.
Well, no, the sky ends 12 miles up.
No.
That's our layer of atmosphere, and then after that, there's nothing there. There's no sky. It's
another sky.
It's void. It's the absence of everything. All right. Well, here's one to blow your mind. So you know what the Milky Way is?
Mm-hmm.
Not the chocolate bar.
Oh.
Do you know the white band in the sky? So when you see those drawings, the images of galaxies, they're like sort of swirly things, and they're flat like a dinner plate or a frisbee.
Yeah.
So we are at the outside edge of our galaxy, and when you're looking at the Milky Way, you're basically looking at the dinner plate side on, like that, and that's why there's a white band. But a Milky Way is a. Don't say a chocolate bar.
No. But we're in a galaxy.
We're in a galaxy, yes.
Right.
And there's Yes, we're in a galaxy, and there's
None of this is. I'm not exaggerating my understanding of this. So I need to see.
so there's
this
only
visual
one. There's
thing.
only one universe, and within that universe, there's billions and billions and billions of galaxies, and we are in one galaxy, and in our galaxy, there's billions of stars, and the star nearest us is the sun,
Yeah. I think I knew that.
and there's 9. Well, technically 8 planets and 2 dwarf planets.
Do you know how I
in our
knew
solar
that,
system.
that the nearest planet's the sun? Because of the other book of yours that I bought about the car taking the journey towards all the planets.
Meanwhile, back on Earth, yeah.
Yeah, genuinely, that, although it's interesting to my son, maybe he's 2.5, maybe he's still going to know a bit more before he takes that in. But reading that and getting the scale of that, I was like, see, when you put it in that terms, how long would it take me to drive there? I go, yes, it's a book for me.
Yeah, and when we were doing the sculpture trail, it takes, in actuality, it takes 8 minutes for light to reach us from the sun.
Yeah.
But on this trail, you can walk from the sun to planet Earth in 4 minutes. So what does that mean?
We're moving faster than the speed of light
We're moving twice the speed of light on that trail.
on that trail.
And I was like, that's a really cool thing to give people a sense of it, but nobody knows what it feels like to travel at the speed of light. So then I was thinking, well, okay, well, what's a more relatable
Well,
term?
you haven't seen me play football. Up and down that wing.
Yeah. Okay, well, maybe you do. But yeah, so it just felt like driving in a car was a much more relatable time frame.
That's coming back February.
That's coming back in February, yeah.
Okay. And yeah, let's. I think we should be open to being friends.
Okay.
And I'm the airport guy too, by the way.
Yeah, you would. But would you ask me for a quid?
I will never have a quid, so I would have to. I never keep coins about.
Yeah, no, nobody does anymore. Nobody
No.
carries cash since COVID.
Yeah. But yeah, I think we need to. Let's do a Nando's. See what we think. There's no pressure.
Okay.
If you text me
Can
after,
I do like a trial, like a month's free trial?
that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
If you text me at the end of that and go, "Maybe this isn't working out,"
Okay,
no hard feelings.
great.
No hard feelings.
Okay.
Oliver, thanks very much for coming on. I think, I honestly think you are one of the most talented people to ever come from here. I know we have great actors and sports people and all that, but you do so within the same thing. You do so many different things, and you do them so unbelievably well. Like, you're at the top of your game in all the different things that you do.
Well, thank you.
So
I'll take that
I
as a
really
compliment.
appreciate your work. I look forward to reading more of the books, including
How
The
to
Boy
Catch
Who
a
Caught the
Star.
Star. It's called The Boy Who Caught the Star. Thanks very much for coming on, Oliver. Appreciate it.
My
Thanks for having tea
pleasure.
with me.
My pleasure.
Oh, do you drink tea, by the way?
I do drink tea.
That's a question I've asked
Okay.
at the start.
Yeah, no, so I used to drink a lot of tea when I was living here, going through our college and everything, and I stopped drinking tea when I got to New York because the milk is different. So
Yeah.
it's either too thin or it goes straight to cream.
Right.
So I got out of the way of drinking tea, but I've got really into it.
Making up for lost time.
Making up for lost time.
You're
yeah.
mad for it.
I got a really fancy teapot and 2 teacups from Windsor Castle, and so now I drink my tea out of that.
Oh, why?
I know. Builder's tea out of a fancy Windsor Castle teapot. I love the high-low combo.
Juxtaposition.
Yes,
Is it?
it is.
We'll leave it there.